Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Yet another wave of Russian attacks has rocked Ukraine overnight, with artillery, missile and drone strikes launched. The countrywide missile alert lasted hours after Moscow's jets took off. Kyiv's mayor has said that the capital's downtown came under attack overnight, and that air defense units were shooting down missiles and drones as powerful explosions rang across the city. The attack has also targeted the western Volhynia region, which is located right across the border from Poland. The governor of the region says that 50 drones and 5 missiles were detected in Volhynia's airspace overnight, and that nearly all of them were directed at the city of Lutsk. And the Polish Air Force was put on a high alert overnight Tuesday due to a large-scale 3-hour-long Russian attack against Ukraine. According to the Polish Armed Forces Operational Command, NATO fighter jets were scrambled in the middle of the night and ground-based air defense systems brought to high alert for the duration of the Russian airstrikes. The Polish Armed Forces Operational Command was monitoring the situation, and its assets were kept on standby in case an immediate reaction was needed. After the Russian strikes on Ukraine stopped, the fighter jets returned to base and air defense systems were stood down. In a statement released to social media, Polish authorities said they constantly monitor the situation on Ukrainian territory and stand ready to ensure the safety of Polish airspace. At the same time, the Polish Armed Forces Operational Command thanked the NATO Air Command for its support in securing the country's air borders. US President Donald Trump spared no words when describing his disappointment with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. During his Tuesday cabinet meeting, he also revealed that he approved new defense weapons shipments to Ukraine. The development comes after the American leader reportedly promised to send 10 Patriot missiles to Kyiv while asking Germany to provide an additional Patriot battery.
We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless. I'm looking at it, I'm looking. The Senate is passed very, very tough sanctions. But yeah, I'm looking at it. We want to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
The Pentagon has announced that it will send more defensive weapons to Ukraine on President Trump's orders, aiming to help Ukrainians protect themselves and push for lasting peace. Ukrainian MP Inna Sovsun reacted to the announcement on TVP World's World Talks.
Well, that is better than what he said before, but on the other hand, the amount of that weapon is critically important, because there were some other news claiming that more weapons means like 10 missiles for Patriots, which unfortunately is going to last like one night in Ukraine with this level of attacks that we are facing every night, basically here, both in Kyiv but also in other cities. So it's important that we don't just think that, okay, he said that he's going to send more weapons, so the problem is solved, because the problem is not solved, and we need much more weapons. We need to get back to the real discussions about the amount of weapons that can actually save lives here, not for one night, not for 1 week, but for a longer process, for a longer period of time, because unfortunately that is the situation that we're in.
Now, according to press reports, it was US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth who had earlier on authorized a pause in weapons shipments to Ukraine without notifying the White House. According to 5 sources familiar with the matter, the move set off a scramble in the White House to understand why the halt was implemented and explain it to the US Congress. This wouldn't be the first time the US Secretary of Defense has failed to coordinate his decisions with the rest of the Trump administration. In February, Hegseth signed off on a pause in weapons shipments to Ukraine, but just like now, the decision was quickly reversed by Donald Trump. On Tuesday, the US president suggested he was not responsible for the latest halt in arms deliveries. Asked whether he approved the decision, Trump replied that the US would continue to send defensive weapons to Ukraine. Two of the sources attributed Hegseth's not informing the White House to the fact that he has no chief of staff or trusted advisors that would otherwise urge him to coordinate major policy decisions. According to a report by Bloomberg, the European Union is considering establishing a fund for Ukraine worth 100 billion euros. As stated by unnamed sources, the funding would begin to be disbursed in 2028 to provide additional assistance to Kyiv amid waning US support. The proposal was previously touted by the European Commissioner for Defence and Space, Andrius Kubilius. Back in December, Kubilius called for additional funding to be included in the upcoming 7-year EU budget. The fund, alongside other options, will be further discussed before the release of the multi-annual financial framework on the 16th of July. The news comes amid reports that the White House is pursuing a plan to have Germany sell another Patriot battery to Ukraine, with the US and the EU splitting the cost of the purchase. Moldovan President Maia Sandu visited Warsaw for talks with Poland's top leaders, focusing on security, the war in Ukraine, and Moldova's path towards the European Union. During meetings with Prime Minister Donald Tusk and President Andrzej Duda, Sandu received strong backing from Moldova's EU and NATO ambitions. Also, all the leaders emphasized the need to stop Russia's aggression to secure peace in Europe, calling for continued US support for Ukraine. Sandu also congratulated Poland on its European presidency, during which the European Union established its largest ever financial support package for Moldova. During a state visit to London, French President Emmanuel Macron said Paris and London must work together to protect the international order that was created after World War II. He added that Europe will not abandon Ukraine in its struggle for freedom from Russian aggression.
We have to work together in order to defend an efficient multilateralism and to protect the international order as we forged it after the Second World War. This is why, together with you, Mr. Prime Minister, we decided to launch last February this coalition of the willing you mentioned. And this coalition was just the signal that the Europeans will never abandon Ukraine, never.
The government in Romania aims to reduce its budget deficit to 3% of GDP by the year 2030. While some austerity measures have already been announced, further cuts are expected. In an interview for The Bottom Line, Romanian economist Sebastian Buhai warned that any austerity steps should include safeguards to protect the country's most vulnerable citizens.
Romania has almost the highest poverty, for sure, for those under 18 years old, the highest child poverty in Europe, for instance. We've been having a disastrous execrably managed public education and scientific research for years. The public healthcare system is in fire ad litem. I mean, there were many burning hospitals. I'm not mincing my words here. So on top of this, of course, now we come with austerity measures, which, yes, part of them have to be implemented. So let's not forget that any of these austerity measures have to be followed by proper measures to help those in need.
In Slovakia, the man accused of attempting to assassinate Prime Minister Robert Fico arrived in court on Tuesday, but refused to testify. The prosecution has charged him with terrorism, which could carry a life sentence. Police escorted Juraj Cintula into the court. He declined to speak and formally enter a plea. He was willing to accept a 12-year sentence, but this has been rejected by the prosecution, who is charging him with terrorism. His lawyer challenges the charge, arguing that the attack was driven by personal anger towards Fico, not an intent to threaten the government. Cintula had earlier told investigators that he shot Robert Fico because, in his words, Fico was strangling culture. He insisted he only wanted to injure the Prime Minister so that he could never stand again. 3 men have been found guilty of setting fire to Ukraine-linked businesses in London, United Kingdom. Officials say the attack was ordered by Russia's state-backed Wagner private military group. The blast happened last year at an industrial site in East London. It damaged 2 businesses, including one that has been sending packages to Ukraine.
I think since 2018 and our change in response towards state threats, particularly from Russia, but also from Iran and others, we've made the UK a hostile operating environment for those governments. But as a result, they've diversified and are now contacting relatively young people to act on their behalf as proxies in doing their activity. But of course, we're very agile in our response model. So of course, we need to pivot our response model and work ever more closely with international partners and the intelligence agencies to ensure that we're match fit and we're responding to that. And more than 20% of our work comes from foreign states in counter-terrorism policing. And of course, we need to respond to that. And our partnership with the public is integral. So all I would say to the public is, don't be alarmed by it, but certainly be alert. If you're concerned in any way, contact counter-terrorism policing and we will respond.
The European Parliament backed Bulgaria's move to adopt the euro during a vote in Strasbourg on Tuesday. The country is now set to switch to the euro on the 1st January next year. Both the European Commission and the European Central Bank have confirmed that Bulgaria meets the strict economic criteria required to join the Eurozone. Bulgaria will become the Eurozone's 21st member following Croatia's entry in 2023. However, the journey hasn't been without hurdles. The decision has sparked public protests, with many Bulgarians worried that adopting the euro could drive up living costs and shift financial controls to Brussels. Still, supporters believe the transition will strengthen Bulgaria's economy and enhance financial stability. The death toll from the flash floods that ravaged large portions of central Texas has risen to at least 109, many of them children. The figure could rise even further as the governor of Texas said that search and rescue teams continue looking for 161 people still considered missing.
The numbers that I have is that there are 94 fatalities. 94 fatalities associated with this flooding event in this area. Separate from that, in other flooding events in other parts of the state of Texas, there's another 15 fatalities for a total of 109. To put this into perspective, just in the Kerr and Kendall counties alone, there are far more fatalities than there were in Hurricane Harvey. That's how catastrophic this is. Just in the Kerr County area alone, there are 161 people who are known to be missing. And again, that comes from combined law enforcement efforts, 161 known people who are missing. Know this, we will not stop until every missing person is accounted for.
Residents of Marseille's Estac district saw yesterday's wildfire destroy many of their homes. Although large fires have been seen in Marseille in previous years, locals say they have never seen one move so fast.
We've already had big fires like this in 2001, 2005 and 2006, but none spread so quickly. In the span of 10 minutes, the fire spread from Les Pennes-Mirabeau to Les Marinières. That's quite a leap. When we were outside, we saw birds flying up in flames.
So I tried to put out as much fire as I could in the garden, hedges and all. When I managed to put it out, I saw that my neighbor's house was on fire. The heat made it impossible for me to stay, so I hosed myself down, got in my car and drove down. We told ourselves, the wind is blowing in the right direction, it's going to go off towards Les Pennes-Mirabeau and all that. And then we saw that it was starting to burn on the top of the hill back there at Les Marinières. Some houses burned, we saw the fire move down. And then it went up to our place. So we tried to hose everything we could down to prevent it from catching fire, but it did. All our fences and trees went up in flames. We lost 2 cars and I also lost a scooter because I keep it inside a shed that caught fire too.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching and please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.